I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Layla Falden. It's hurting agriculture and pushing young farmers to migrate in search of a better future. The heat briefly shut down the Acropolis last week, and now wildfires are burning through many parts of Greece. How are government officials handling one of the largest wildfire evacuations in its history? It's Monday, July 24th. Happy birthday to Jennifer Lopez. She's 54 today.
Now the
News is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Lawmakers in the Israeli parliament have passed a controversial judicial reform bill. The measure has drawn fiery condemnation from opponents who say it will significantly damage Israel's democracy. Supporters in the ruling party say they want to stop the Israeli Supreme Court from overreaching. There is so much fury about the judicial reform legislation that some members of professional groups, such as doctors, have gone on strike briefly. Some military reservists in Israel have said they won't work either. Today is the deadline for Texas Governor Greg Abbott to respond to the Justice Department over floating barriers in the Rio Grande. As Texas Public Radio's David Martin Davies reports, the federal agency is threatening Texas with legal action.
Last week, the Biden administration sent the Texas governor's office notice that it wanted to enter into negotiations over the removal of the buoy barrier. Abbott ordered the floating wall placed in the middle of a river separating the United States and Mexico to prevent migrants from illegally crossing into Texas. The DOJ says the buoys violate federal law, raise humanitarian concerns, and present serious risk to public safety and the environment. The buoy wall is the latest development in a growing battle between Republican states and the federal government over the border and immigration. Abbott signaled on Twitter he is not backing down, writing, quote, "We'll see you in court, Mr. President." I'm David Martin Davies in San Antonio.
A new survey from the National Association for Business Economics shows considerable optimism about the U.S. economy. Steve Becker reports those results run counter to speculation over the past year that the U.S. economy was in risk of going into recession.
Actual business conditions are turning out better than many had feared. NABE President Julia Coronado says the survey of her members, quote, reflects an economy of rising sales and profits. The business economists say their firms were able to increase prices at the same time their material costs fell and upward wage pressures lessened. Coca-Cola chief economist Carlos Herrera, who chaired the NABE survey, says the resulting brighter profit outlook means most firms in the group are now more confident about the economy over the next year. For NPR News, I'm Steve Becker.
The National Weather Service says excessive heat is sticking around much of the U.S. today. Millions of people, mostly in the central U.S. and the West, are under heat advisories or warnings. Forecasters caution the dangerous heat will spread to much of the eastern two-thirds of the country this week. Search teams in Pennsylvania are concentrating their efforts to find a missing baby. He was swept away in a flash flood north of Philadelphia more than a week ago. That flood killed 6 people, including his mother and 2-year-old sister. This is NPR.
With KUT News in Austin, I'm Jennifer Staten. Sweltering heat continues across the Austin area. Mac Morris is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. He says the region could meet heat advisory criteria every day through the end of this week. Considering a change in climate, Morris says this may be the new normal for summers in Texas.
And people remember 2011 being very hot. However, it's actually this is probably going to be the coldest summer you're going to experience for the rest of your life down here. So it's just going to remain hot.
Morris recommends avoiding strenuous outdoor activity between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. and never leaving children or pets unattended in vehicles. Advocates are calling on state regulators to declare a moratorium on electricity disconnections until the end of the summer. As KUT's Mose Bushell reports, the petition to the Public Utility Commission of Texas comes as record heat continues to threaten people's health and well-being.
Under state rules, private utility companies can disconnect people as long as a heat advisory is not in effect in the utility service area, and there has not been one in effect during the preceding 2 days. That still leaves windows of time for companies to cut people's power between searing heat waves, says Tina Tran. She's the state director of AARP Texas, one of the groups that filed the petition.
We are extremely worried about it. We know that older consumers don't always recognize the symptoms of heat-related illnesses, and yet they're much more vulnerable to heat-related illnesses.
AARP and the Texas Consumer Association are also asking state regulators to start tracking disconnections for lack of payment at least into this November. It should be noted that parts of the state with co-op power or publicly owned electric utilities may operate under different policies. In Austin, the city utility won't disconnect for non-payment on days when the heat index is 102 or over and is forecasted to be for the following day. I'm Mose Michelle in Austin.
The Pease Park splash pad in Austin is closed till further notice. The Pease Park Conservancy says the system that monitors the splash pad's water quality is not working. They say they've reached out to the pad's manufacturer, haven't found a solution yet. In the meantime, the Conservancy has installed sprinklers in the park to help folks cool off. Austin's getting a temporary reserve police force. The Austin City Council approved the plan last Thursday. The 75 officer force would be deployed for special events and aims to address a gap in staffing at the Austin Police Department. Ahead of the vote, the Austin Justice Coalition's Chris Harris said he supported the plan if there was oversight from city leaders.
There's a benefit to this item, provided that there are limits and controls and training and oversight over the people that are performing this duty.
Reserve Force officers would be approved by the Austin City Council, and unless it is renewed, the plan would end after 2 years. You can keep up with more coverage from the KUT newsroom at KUT.org.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Doris Duke Foundation, which aims to support the well-being of people and the planet for a more creative, equitable, and sustainable future. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
It's 8:07.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Layla Faldin.
And I'm Steve Inskeep. Good morning. Some people are having a harder time finding home insurance. Climate change is altering the risk for certain homes, and no matter how much some people deny it, insurance companies do not want to pay for it. We'll hear more in a moment. On this Monday, we're also watching for another indictment of former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, the frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination has already been indicted twice. One is state, one is federal. If it happens soon, this would be another federal indictment over his effort to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election.
NPR's Carrie Johnson is following this story. Hey there, Carrie.
Hey, Steve.
What makes it seem like an indictment is near?
Donald Trump has told us all that he received a target letter about a week ago, and that's a strong signal that the special counsel Jack Smith is moving toward a grand jury indictment of the former president. In order to indict, the grand jury would have to find probable cause that Trump broke the law. Now, that's a lower standard than what's needed to convict in a courtroom, but it's still a very significant step, and Trump's lawyers are suggesting a number of possible charges may be on the table, including conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and obstruction of Congress on January 6th. Trump says he's, quote, completely innocent, and he's been fundraising off this target letter for several days now.
Which might be one reason that one would release such a letter, I suppose, to marshal political and financial support. Now, with each of these indictments, we have to learn or relearn about another pattern of alleged criminal conduct. What would the alleged conduct be here?
You know, in some ways, Steve, this would be the most serious criminal case against Donald Trump if it goes forward. More than 2 years ago, we all watched rioters storm the U.S. Capitol. They beat up police officers with their fists and with flagpoles and other instruments. They stopped, at least for a little while, the certification of the 2020 presidential election. And you know, the Justice Department and the FBI have already arrested about 1,000 people in connection with the riot. But whether the people who spread lies about election fraud in 2020 would ever face justice has been a big and open question. This target letter for Donald Trump is a sign special counsel Jack Smith is moving to hold the former president accountable. Grand juries here in Washington, D.C. continue to hear from witnesses and issue subpoenas for documents, so their work is not done yet.
How is the former president defending himself in case after case while also campaigning for another term as president?
You know, Trump has made a different decision here than others. He's making his legal problems a centerpiece of his presidential campaign. He's casting himself as someone who's been targeted for political reasons. That's even though the Justice Department appointed a special counsel to try to insulate these investigations from politics. And Trump is going to be in and out of court for most of the next year. He has a criminal trial in Manhattan over hush money payments to the adult film star Stormy Daniels in March 2024. He now has a trial date in Florida for May 2024. Steve, that's the case that accuses Trump of hoarding classified documents